Rheumatic fever is an illness caused by an immunological reaction to group A streptococcal infection of the throat. The onset of symptoms occurs 1 to 3 weeks after an untreated or inadequately treated throat infection. The disease occurs mainly in children or adolescents with a peak age of 5 to 15 years. Acute rheumatic fever often results in lasting damage to heart valves, leading to the chronic form, which is known as rheumatic heart disease. Individuals who have had acute rheumatic fever previously are more likely to have subsequent episodes, and these recurrences may cause further heart valve damage. Following treatment of an acute episode, secondary prophylaxis should be continued for a minimum of 10 years after the recent episode of acute rheumatic fever, or until age 21 years, whichever is longer. For those with severe rheumatic heart disease, secondary prophylaxis should be continued indefinitely. Rheumatic heart disease is an important cause of heart failure or premature death. An acute rheumatic fever may mimic malaria, typhoid, and even other febrile conditions. All the joint symptoms may mimic sickle cell disease. Jones criteria is used for diagnosis of rheumatic fever. So for diagnosis of initial acute rheumatic fever, there should be evidence of preceding group A streptococcal infection, and two major criteria, or one major criterion and two minor criteria. And also for diagnosis of recurrent acute rheumatic fever, there should be evidence of preceding group A streptococcal infection and two major criteria, or one major criterion and 2 or 3 minor criteria. So the causes are group A streptococcal infections, and the symptoms are fever, malaise, joint pain which moves from one joint to another, knees, ankles, wrists, elbows, and also palpitations, easy fatigability, chest pain, skin rash, and abnormal body movements, that's chorea. The signs that are usually elicited are fever more than 38 degrees Celsius as a minor criteria, single joint tenderness or swelling, that falls under minor criteria, and a rapid heart rate more than 100 beats per minute, murmur, heart failure, pericardial rap, suggesting carditis, all fall under major criteria. Also skin rash and subcutaneous nodules over bony prominences. Investigations are FBC, ESR more than 30, or C-reactive protein more than 3 milligrams per deciliter as a minor criteria. Sickling status, chest x-ray, throat swab for culture, anti-streptolysin, O titer, 12-lead ECG, prolonged PR interval for age, that was under minor criteria, and echocardiogram evidence of carditis as major criteria. So the main treatment objectives are to eradicate streptococcal throat infection, to suppress inflammatory response, to prevent recurrent episodes of rheumatic fever and further heart valve damage, and also to treat heart failure if coexistent. Non-pharmacological treatment, bed rest. Pharmacological treatment. For the treatment of rheumatic fever, the first line treatment, you give benzathine, benzyl penicillin IM, body weight 30 kilograms or more, you give 1,200,000 units as a single dose, and less than 30 kilogram body weight, you give 600,000 units as a single dose. Or you can give phenoxymethyl penicillin as penicillin V oral in adults 500 milligrams 12 hourly for 10 days, and in children 6 to 12 years you give 250 milligrams 12 hourly for 10 days. 1 to 5 years you give 1 to 5 milligrams 12 hourly for 10 days. Or you can give erythromycin oral for patients allergic to penicillin. Adults, you give 500 milligrams 12 hourly for 10 days, and children 8 to 12 years, you give 500 milligrams 12 hourly for 10 days. 3 to 8 years, 250 milligrams 12 hourly for 10 days, and 1 to 2 years, you give 1 to 5 milligrams 12 hourly for 10 days. And also for you could also give aspirin oral in adults 300 to 900 milligrams 4 to 6 hourly until joint symptoms relieve, and gradually withdraw over 1 to 2 weeks. For children 1 month to 18 years, give 25 milligrams of aspirin per kilogram 6 hourly until joint symptoms are relieved, and gradually withdraw over 1 to 2 weeks. Or you can give ibuprofen oral in adults 200 milligrams to 800 milligrams 6 to 8 hourly, the maximum dosage of 2,400 milligrams daily. In children, you give 10 to 15 milligrams per kilogram 6 to 8 hourly with a maximum dosage of 40 milligrams per kilogram daily. And also treatment of acute rheumatic fever with carditis. You treat as mentioned. And also you add prednisolone oral in adults and children 2 milligrams per kilogram daily for 2 weeks, and then gradually taper off by 20 to 25% per week for 1 to 3 weeks. A treatment of acute rheumatic fever with heart failure, you treat as mentioned, and also you treat heart failure respectively. For secondary prevention, that's prophylaxis of acute rheumatic fever and rheumatic heart disease, first line treatment, you give benzathine and benzyl penicillin IM. You give 1,200,000 units, that's 30 kilogram body weight or more, and less than 30 kilograms body weight, you give 450 milligrams, that's 600,000 units for weekly. And for second line treatment, you give phenoxymethyl penicillin, that's penicillin V oral in adults 500 milligrams 12 hourly daily, and in children 6 to 12 years, you give 250 milligrams 12 hourly, and 1 to 5 years, you give 1 to 5 milligrams 12 hourly. Or you could also give erythromycin oral for patients allergic to penicillin in adults 500 milligrams 12 hourly, in children 8 to 12 years 500 milligrams 12 hourly, 3 to 8 years 250 milligrams 12 hourly, and 1 to 2 years 1 to 5 milligrams daily. Referral criteria: so refer all patients to a pediatrician, physician specialist, or cardiologist as necessary for further management.